Today is Sunday, September the 14th, 2025. My name is Thom Rigsby, and this is your AmCon Daily Brief. On today's show, preparedness doesn't stop at your doorstep. Awareness may start at home, but it is meant to spread outward. And later in the show, I'll sit down with some special guests for a new segment called the Sunday Sitdown. This week, we focused on family life in back-to-school season. New routines, busier commutes, quieter homes, germ spreading, even the unthinkable possibility of a school lockdown. Every day we looked at awareness through the lens of how it shapes our own households. But preparedness is never meant to stop at the front door. The same habits that protect your family, noticing patterns, adjusting routines, and building resilience, they are the very habits that make your neighborhood stronger too. Preparedness is personal, but it's also communal. When you practice awareness, you're not just protecting yourself, you're creating an example that others can follow. This weekend, I've been with the North Region at their annual Campout and Adventure Challenge in Iowa. To close out the week about awareness, I sat down with Michael, our North Region coordinator, and Denny, our national training coordinator. We talked about preparedness, leadership, and the future of AmCon. Let's jump into that Sunday Sitdown. This is, all right, it is Sunday, and this is our first installment of Sunday Sitdown. I'm joined by Michael Berdahl, our North Region Regional Coordinator. That sounds a little redundant. And Denny Greco, our National Training Coordinator. We are here at the North Region Adventure Challenge 2025 edition. And I really want this to be just a, almost like we did last night, just kind of sit around the table and chat for a little bit. I'll give us some handrails and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can probably do the PG version.
Yeah, we should probably do that. All right. So first, big news this week. This is, I don't know what the week is, but today is September the 13th as we record this. Big news of the week was Charlie Kirk's assassination. And so before we get into kind of the AmCon related conversation, I wanted to talk about that for just a minute and just to ask each of you, how are you kind of processing that event, and what do you think members should take away from big crisis moments like this? I mean, this is a big stage. Yesterday we called it a big stage moment. How are you personally looking at this, and then what do you think the members ought to think about this, or not think about it, but what should they take away from it?
You want to take this one first, Mike?
Sure.
I don't mind, but
So, first of all, from a personal level, it was very disturbing. I was very sad and filled with sorrow that I haven't felt outside of my family. I think he was just an incredibly beautiful human being who is doing so much good in our culture, and particularly the connection that he was making with our youth, as well as the fact that, he was, I think, leading a lighting the way for how we extricate ourselves from this cultural morass that we find ourselves in of tribalism, and getting out and having conversations, having dialogue with people, and being respectful of them and their positions and their opinions, and talking sense and logic and reason, and debating them and asking them to, maybe think and to open up their mind and not be biased coming into a discussion about a conversation or their position on a particular topic. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's my personal reaction to it. And with regard to what I think chapter members can take away from it, our members here in AmCon, is that, I think he's a model, right, for how we can emulate. And I'm, him and be part of the solution, because for me, right, I mean, complaining is easy. And, if you really want to solve a problem, and I believe that he was addressing a serious problem in our culture, and Americans pitted against Americans, that you have to be part of the solution. And I think that each of us can be part of the solution by following the example that he set and challenging people respectfully in their positions, and talking reason and logic, and engaging them in dialogue, and having a respectful person, an honest debate. Yeah, and trying to build bridges. And you can agree to disagree, but at least you're not calling people some of the worst, labeling them in the worst possible way that people can be labeled, as like Hitler, fascist,
right.
And so on and so racist, and so on and so forth down the line. But because that solves nothing, and as we've been told, words are violence. So let's not be violent about it. Let's be because violence never solves anything. So I think that Charlie has set the example for how we can help to improve our culture and our situation, and try and throw into reverse this rush to and this ever increasing tribalism and dissension, and in many instances just hate between fellow Americans and human beings.
Yeah.
Well, and that's how it ties itself into our mission here, in American Contingency, because we promote everybody to talk to each other, right? Meet your neighbors, meet your community, talk to your family. I mean, think about, going back to my feelings when it happened. I mean, it was a shock, yes. Wasn't a surprise. I mean, we were at a boiling point. We've been boiling for a while, right? We talked about that last night, and these things are happening now, and we need to wake up. We need to start talking. We need to really push. I mean, what I took out of it was stop shutting up. When I see my crazy uncle or my, silly neighbor that's talking about things that aren't even true. They're engage respectfully. They're my neighbor. They're my family member. We shouldn't be afraid to do that anymore, because if we shy away from it, it gets worse and worse, right?
I think that's key. I think the thing, Michael, you said what he was doing well. I think what he was doing well was he didn't look like he was afraid, but I hesitate to say courageously. But he was wading into the lion's den, right, to have conversations, just to talk to people, right?
Yeah.
And you can say simple things like, "Wow, that's an interesting point of view. Help me understand where that came from."
Sure.
Right? And now, we've watched clips of Charlie for a long time, but going back and looking at some of them over the last couple of days with the context of what has happened, it's like, he had a very sharp intellect. He was very quick on his feet, and he could have those conversations. We don't have to be mean,
Right.
but we also don't have to cower away from what I hold to be right and true.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was doing. I watched one today where he was being challenged on, why he had so much faith in the Bible when it was written by a lot of different people over the span of a lot of years. And he says, well, see, that just proves to me that it's true, because all of these people across hundreds of years wrote about the same topic, and they all converge back on the same point. He did that in a super respectful way without saying, well, that just shows how stupid you are and uninformed. I mean, he could have taken that tack, right? So I think that, for me, I think it's the big takeaway, and if we want to, I guess, honor or amplify the impact that he has made, is just to continue having conversations, and it's going to be really easy over the next some span of time to say those people are evil, they're not worth even trying to talk to. But I think it is incumbent upon us. I didn't know him. So it's difficult for me to say he would have wanted us to do anything. But certainly by his example, I think he would have wanted us to have conversations with those people, especially the hard ones.
Yeah,
So.
and I think that was what caused me to have a great deal of respect for him, is that, he met people where they were and didn't do it from the safety of a studio, right? He got out into the lion's den, as you said,
Right.
Thom, right? And he was so incredibly grounded in Christian values and teachings, and I think a true love for his fellow humans, because they're all, children of God. And
he was unashamed of his beliefs.
Right.
And I think that over the last 4 or 5 years, I kind of go back to we've kind of jokingly called it the summer of love, but I kind of go back to that summer as a real demarcation point where you can't disagree with me or you're a fill in the blank phobic, right? And we just said, yeah, okay, whatever, right? I think we need to stand up, call it what it is, right? You're just making stuff up. I'm not.
Yeah.
Because if I don't like the color of your shoes, that doesn't make me a shoe phobic, right? It just means I don't like your shoes.
Right.
And I'm entitled to my opinion, right? So, I don't know. Anyway, I think that, a big takeaway for all of us, kind of all of us here at the table and everybody listening, is we all have to evaluate this for how it applies to us. Kind of, we talked earlier today about how risk profiles are different for different people. How I take this, how I apply this, what this changes for me is going to be different for everybody.
yes.
It doesn't have to be one answer. So I would encourage everybody to think about, if you believed in the message that he was sharing, what can you do to continue that work?
That's right. And I was very positive in my, sharing my thoughts on this topic up until this point. But I think another tremendous takeaway from what happened is the response of some of the people in this country. And violence is never the answer to anything. And saying that he deserved it or this or that or the other thing, it's just makes me so incredibly even more saddened than I was by his loss, that people have gotten to that point where they're willing to come out in the numbers that they did to just say such horrific things. And so that's why I think it's so incredibly important to not only, as Thom said, continue to have discussions, but to really make a concerted and focused effort to have more discussions, because the only way that I think we're going to be able to affect change in a positive manner is to try and have as much dialogue as we possibly can, and to, in a respectful manner, try and come together and have a meeting of minds and thoughts and talk through things and try and come to some common understanding, right?
We used to do it.
Yeah, we
It
did.
used to be common space to have conversations openly about what we felt, and we walk away or
Yeah.
go have a beer together after we're done.
Well, and the founding fathers had some great conversations
Yes, they did.
over a pint.
Yes, they did.
So,
And some
Uh,
incredible disagreements. Yeah.
but at the end of the day, they had the same objective in mind,
Right.
and they could, even though I disagree on the execution and how to get to that objective, I can still respect you and your desire to achieve that objective also. Right. And, for me, I think our objective is happy, healthy, engaged people who are living the best life they can. And so anyway, I'll give you, Michael and I have kind of dominated this part. I'll give you the last word on Charlie, and then we'll move on.
I guess I could throw something out there just to anybody that's listening to this is Charlie was well-spoken. He knew a lot of facts that you and I may not know, right? We may be intimidated to step into these conversations sometimes because we may be afraid they may know more than us, so we're just going to shut up or back up. And you know what? It doesn't matter. You know what you know what you believe in, you know what's right, and you shouldn't be afraid to represent what you think is right because this is America.
Well, okay, so I'm going to take the last word. But humility is important, right? It's not an argument about who's right and who's wrong.
Sure.
Right? It's what can I learn from this conversation? What can you learn from this conversation? But when both parties enter into that conversation demanding to be correct, well, because then you run into that problem where, this person might actually know more than me.
Yeah.
And what I thought was correct is not. Oh, now I'm in trouble. So now I'm backed into a corner and I just have to fight harder. If you enter into that conversation with humility, and that's that statement I used a minute ago, well, help me understand why you think that, because I don't see it that way at all. That's a much more gracious way to enter into that. Well, just teach me, tell me. And if you can, great. If you can't, okay. But, you don't have to change my mind. I don't have to change yours. It's just an exchange of ideas.
And those are the tools people need, because I don't want to see people afraid to step back out, right?
Right.
And you have to challenge, wrong mindfulness, but in a respectful way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about AmCon. Denny, I'm going to start with you.
All righty.
National Training Coordinator.
All right.
Why is training important to our members?
Sure. Well, training is, you ask anybody what preparedness is, and that's the first thing that pops in their head, right? They don't think of anything else. They think about getting ready, getting prepared, training, learning things, right? So whether that is truly it or not, and once you join the AmCon community and you start to grow and learn, you realize that is a big part of it, but it is not everything.
Yeah.
I think from the outside looking in, that's the biggie. And it's important because if we don't provide a great training arena or place for people to dwell in, especially when they first join, they won't stick around. They'll be lost. They'll be, why am I here? They need direction. They came to learn some things, so we need to give them some things right away and then show them the way, the true way to be prepared.
Right. What do you think is the biggest obstacle then for any member? But I'm going to give you a really hard question. What do you think is the biggest obstacle for our long-term existing members in training?
Well, right off the bat, that I could tell you, one of the biggest obstacles is anybody that gets a little bit of training on anything thinks they're an expert at everything, and they think they're done and they're good and they don't need any more training. And if anybody out there has done anything that they're passionate about, they realize that you never stop training.
Yeah.
Because they love it, right? And maybe, maybe that's why, because a lot of the stuff they don't love, so they just want to kick it aside and do the things they love. But so the obstacle really is finding the secret sauce, right? Finding, well, what does it take to get people to understand, no, it's all important. No, you need to continue training. And when you get to an area where you think, I think you've said this quite a bit, and it really resonates with me. When you get to a certain level where you think you got it all, then teach it.
Yeah.
Pass it along to the membership. So it's, long story short, the obstacle is making all that function, right? So people continue to consume the training that we put out for them. And how do you do that? And how do you keep people engaged enough to keep doing that? And we'll always be on a quest for that. I think that because everybody's different, right?
I think the danger is when people think it's a one and done.
Yeah.
Oh, I can take this class and now I'm good, right? And the reality is that class should just introduce you to what you don't know, right? It's kind of like we talk about ham radio, and I say that your license, your ticket is just your ticket to start learning, right? Yes, you have to study, and yes, you have to pass a test, but you're just getting started,
Right.
Right?
Well, yeah, and preparedness isn't a destination; it's a lifestyle.
Sure.
Right? So, you're never really done.
No.
It's not even a journey. I mean, I talk about your preparedness journey a lot, but you're right. It's not a journey. It is a movement from point A to point B. So, I mean, it's a journey in that respect. But an individual can go on a journey from point A to point B and not incorporate the traveling into their lifestyle. But you're spot on. I mean, preparedness has to be part of how you live your life. That's the lifestyle part.
Yeah, it's not a destination because it's not something that when you get there you're done.
Right. Ooh, this is what it looks like. Well, Michael, let's talk about regional coordination, Mr. North Region Coordinator. What do you see as your biggest responsibility to the chapters in the North?
So my greatest responsibility and what I think is the greatest need is community. That's what me as the regional coordinator and the deputy regional coordinator on my team, that's our primary focus on the regional team is community, because I think that, community is incredibly important, incredibly powerful, and we've lost so much. I mean, when I was a young lad, my mother's side of the family were farmers, and I had the pleasure of being able to, and the privilege of being able to spend summers, the entire summer break from school, between school years, on my grandparents' farm.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty gray, so I think that we've lost a lot of community in my lifetime, and I understand, what the power of community is, right? And so, and also too, one of the major objectives of government is to make you dependent upon them, because then it gives them more power over you and you less liberty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that, if you can develop that community and understanding that even though you may be prepared, kind of going back to what AmCon is focused on, beginning with you individually, preparedness, then your family, then your neighborhood, then your, right? So, if you can't, you have to start with yourself, and then get that in order, and then your family, and then move out from there. But the whole thing being that, you can't really do it by yourself. I mean, if you look at any disaster and the response to and recovery from that disaster, if it's just you, I mean, how many in a tornado, how many trees are you going to clear? How many to open up, lines of supply for logistics. so that you can get what you need to where you are, or your roof being caved in by a fallen tree. How many people are going to be able to help you get that down, tarp it up, and repair it so that you can have a place to sleep and to live and to recover from the disaster that you've just experienced. And so community has not only been lost, but community is important, and people need to come to the understanding that, number one, you can't do it by yourself. Number two, you won't be able to succeed by outsourcing it to others and not taking any personal accountability, because that just puts you in a position of being, reliant upon others, which gives others power over you, and limits your liberty and your choices. And so, I don't know. I could go on for a long time about the importance of community and the importance of what we're trying to help people accomplish, which is self-reliance, right? And to be personally responsible.
So I'm going to tweak that just a little bit, and I've done this a lot too. Self-reliance is not exactly the word. I think I'd like to see people be more self-sufficient. So, and maybe it's just a nuanced difference, but self-reliance to me conjures up images of Grizzly Adams, right? Roughing it on his own. And I mean, I'm a big believer, I know you guys are too, about that you can't really do it alone.
Even the Lone Ranger had Tonto.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even the Lone Ranger had a partner, right? So you need that community support. And my argument for that usually is, well, you got to sleep sometime, right? So, I don't know. I community is just a big part, and I don't disagree with anything you said. I just want to make sure that, we encourage people to be prepared to care for themselves in the context of a community.
Yeah, and I think that so what we do in that regard then, what I do as the regional coordinator along with my deputy, is to help people, because many people don't know where to start, don't know how to do it, don't know what it means, don't know what it looks like. And so we coach, we mentor, we remove obstacles, we provide resources, we help actually actively, shoulder to shoulder, with the people who raise their hand and say, yes, I hear you and I agree about the value of community, and I'd like to build one, but I need help, right? And so we help them in whatever way that they may need help. We listen very closely, and we don't want to make them reliant upon us, right? And do it for them, but we want to help them and support them and be cheerleaders, whatever we can do to help them be successful. I mean, if I'm to be successful as regional coordinator, my success is measured directly as whether or not they're successful.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and you're showing them the way, right? I mean, they can take all the training they want, but if they don't nestle in somewhere with their neighbors and their community, they don't have the Tonto yet, right? You create the Tonto for them.
Well, I think it's important, too, that, I'm a believer that language matters, like self-reliance versus self-sufficiency. But above the local team level, right, all of our leadership positions are called coordinators or managers, right? A lot of the staff has manager jobs or titles. But like you're a regional coordinator, you got a regional training coordinator, there's state coordinators. And the idea behind that was to say, you're not the person in charge, right? You're the person who's helping tie all of this together. And when Team A needs support from somebody, teams B, C, D, and E, and like, hey, we've got a resource over here, and you can help tie them together.
Right. And when I say that I'm a cheerleader, it can be very frustrating, to try and build community. And people can take it personally, and people can get frustrated, and people sometimes, want to give up. And so, I'm there to say, hey, I believe in you. We're going to be successful. If you're trying to, get around a wall, you can either go over, under, around, so let's try something different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what? It's good training, because if you're in a disaster, you're going to have that feeling a lot. And so why not start here with building your community, right?
Yeah.
Learn how.
What, Denny, what do you think are some of the biggest preparedness challenges? And I don't know if this week changes that or not, but what do you think are some of the big challenges coming up that people listening to this need to think about for next year or for the next year? I mean, we still have a quarter of this year left.
I mean, I think it doesn't really matter what the year is. The biggest challenge always for everybody across the nation is the community aspect of the preparedness, because no matter how much water you store or how much you learn how to do this or that or the other, like we've talked about already, I mean, without the support system, it goes nowhere. And if we continue to divide ourselves across the nation and we don't learn from what the Charlie situation, and we don't try to improve that, it's going to keep getting worse and worse, and we're going to keep dividing and dividing. And so, to me, that's the biggest thing people should understand is their challenge and should work on and improve is, I mean, let's face it. I mean, we're all sitting at this table. We all understand that we can easily go sit in a corner and tie a knot all day long, but it's much more fun if I do it with my neighbor, right?
Yeah.
And so why aren't we creating that? Why? And it's tough. Hey, it's tough for me to go walk over to my neighbor's house and knock on the door and say, hey, you want to tie a bunch of knots with me tonight? But we got to do it.
I have cold beer.
Yeah. What do you think is the holdup? I mean, is it pride? Is it embarrassment? I mean, I guess pride and embarrassment, two sides of the same coin, but you want them to think, oh, no, I don't want to do that. And then you're embarrassed. And I mean, what's the holdup? Why? Because I ask the question all the time, is your neighbor a member of AmCon? If not, why not? You've got two great leads that have a vested interest. You have a vested interest in them being better prepared that live on either side of you. What is the holdup? What's the obstacle that keeps us from talking to them?
I don't really know, but I'm always good for my 2 cents here and there. But, number one, and I see it a lot, is everybody's motivated to want to do something, but they want to attend it. They don't want to host it. So their fear is that, well, I will go knock on my neighbor's door, but I'm not having it at my house.
Yeah.
Right? And then, so, and you can fix that. You can create, you can talk to people and create, well, go down to the bowling alley, go down to the, to the coffee shop and have a coffee meet at the Starbucks. So I think that's one side of it that's easy. The other side, if we can get a little saucy and throw the conspiracy theory hat on, and spice it up, is that I think there's been a long time of creation of division that we don't even realize is happening to us over the years, and it puts this thought in our brain that we just don't want to do that for whatever reason, whether it's fear, whether it's, stay away from them, or, whatever it is, and we don't even know it's there. And it's created this neighborhood where I mean, when I moved into my neighborhood, we'd have wine on the end of the driveway 25 years ago, and we'd talk about things. Now, you look down that street, there's nobody out there. Well, maybe in mine. I work on it a little bit, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we've lost that for whatever reason, and I think that's the other side of it, is teaching people, we're going to give you this T-shirt that says American Contingency, and we're going to give you a bunch of ideas that are good, honest, and true, and we're going to give you a little push onto your block to say, come on out. I'll do it in front of my house.
Yeah.
Because I have the confidence and I know it's right.
Michael, do you think there's a fight club element to this? You know, like the first rule of prepping is you don't talk about prepping. I mean, I mean, I legit. I mean,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard members say that. You know, and it's kind of funny, but and I get the sentiment, right? I mean, I don't want to advertise that I've got X amount of food, you know, but at the same time, you know, that's why I say all the time: if you're digging into your, 5-year larder of food, the train is really off the rails at that point, right?
Yeah.
What's far more likely is that extended power outage. So I can talk about that. Hey, you're supposed to have some weather. Y'all have flashlights, batteries in the flashlights. You got a radio.
Right, exactly. And I think that you might have mentioned the importance of language earlier
Yeah.
when we were kind of, some may call it splitting hairs over self-reliant or, self-sufficient.
Some might,
But
yeah.
some might. But language is important. And so I think that, an important element of language in that context is to not call yourself a prepper or use the word preparation, because in this, era of just some really good memes, the meme for a prepper is the crazy tinfoiled hat frickin', lunatic who
Wearing a gas mask.
yeah, wears a gas
In a
mask
bunker.
in a bunker. Exactly. Exactly. And so, I think that it's a matter of being, smart, for lack of a better word, about the conversation that you have, right? So, I mean, there's so much going on that you have a wealth of topics, right, from which you can pick to say, hey, what about that train derailment in New Palestine?
Yeah.
What do you think would have happened if we had a train derailment? Because where I live, there's, pretty active transportation along a train line, and I live near a river too, so there are, like barges bringing grain and whatnot, and all sorts of other stuff. And so, I mean, or even the Verizon or the AT&T or the cell phone outages, right? I mean, there are so many things that you can just kind of talk about it, or you can say, hey, I had a grease fire, in my kitchen the other day, and thank goodness I had some flour handy that I could throw on it. Or, do you have a fire extinguisher in your kitchen? Have you ever had that happen to you? Or just find some way to have a non-threatening
Oh, you could even
conversation.
say, hey, I had a grease fire in the kitchen, and I am on a mission now to make sure that every kitchen on this block has a fire blanket,
Yeah.
Yep.
right? I mean, you can take a bold position on it, right? That's not offensive. And, you can say, hey, we've got weather coming. Are you ready? I like
Yeah.
ready better than prepper. But,
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, too, is to then have a conversation about the reality of the limited resource, right, within government. Budgets are being cut all the time. Our government's wasting our tax dollars like, drunken sailors on shore leave. So, to rely upon them to do something with resources being tight and those types of things, I mean, there's only so much that they can do, and it's typically not, very timely. I'm rather flippantly say oftentimes, that if you rely upon the law enforcement in your in your community for your safety and security, you have to think about the fact that oftentimes, the first thing that officers do when they arrive at the scene of a violent crime is call the coroner, right? So, I mean, it's not helpful.
Right.
Yeah, I think
You have to help
a
yourself.
lot of those people that are in Fight Club,
Yeah.
and they don't talk about Fight Club.
Yeah.
They're in Fight Club. I think it's because they're, like you said, you hit it on that. I mean, they're afraid of what people are going to think about it, the stigma, all that. But you'd be really surprised if you start talking about it, how many people would be really interested in joining Fight Club.
I think that people intuitively know that the system doesn't scale well, right? I would, I encourage people to do this. Well, it's all public record. Go look it up. How many sworn police officers are there in your county? Right?
Per capita.
And then do it per capita, right? So then you wind up, if you're lucky, you wind up one for every 30 or 40 people, right? It's probably a much worse ratio than that.
Oh, yeah.
And then you take into account that even during a disaster or a crisis, only half of them are working. And that's if none of them were affected by the disaster or crisis. So the numbers begin to dwindle down fast.
That's right.
Right?
And it's not a single call that they're getting for help in a disaster or a crisis.
Right. And what makes you think that your call for this some unknown person wandering down my street is going to make them drop everything and run right over?
Well, I'm special, Tom.
Well,
Yeah, right?
yeah,
You're absolutely right.
That's the problem, right? Is that we all, and it is. I mean, my problem is the most important thing to me,
Right.
right? But when I'm on the other end of the phone, having to perform triage on the calls, it's like, call back later, right?
Right.
We got other issues to handle.
And so many people have delusions about threats, right? I mean, so
Well-
you can say, oh yeah, the administration has changed, and I like what's going on with the current administration because they're solving a lot of the problems that I felt need to be addressed. But there are still threats, and there are still other problems, right? I mean, we had an open border where we have tens of millions of strangers. We have where they're trying to right size government and all sorts of change going on. And so I mean, like I said, preparedness isn't a destination, it's a lifestyle. So you always need to be prepared because it's never safety is an illusion, right?
Well, right.
yeah.
I mean, those who would sacrifice, how's that saying go? Those who would sacrifice liberty for safety deserve neither.
Correct.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin, one of my favorite founders, and the founder who gave me my is my namesake for my screen name.
Well, but and you also have the other great visual that I have of this is the lion that lives in the zoo, right? He's got a home, he's got food, he's got health care, but he's a prisoner, right? As opposed to the other one who lives out in the open, has none of those things guaranteed, but is free.
And unfortunately, humans have free will, so they're a prisoner of their own making.
Of their own making.
The police example is a really good one that people could take and use because this is factual stuff you can print and show in your local community and show people without being a conspiracy theorist.
Not even really an alarmist.
Right.
Right? It's like, hey, I've found some fascinating information.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that we only have 1,440 sworn officers in this county? And we have 500,000 people that live here.
If I have kids, I got my ears open and my eyes open. I'm like, maybe we should talk about this a little bit.
And it's about buying time. We were talking in the security class earlier today. We were talking about all of these things just buy you more time, right? Buy you more time for backup to arrive, buy you more time to react on your own, buy you more time, and maybe make it harder and they just give up and go away, right? What if the whole neighborhood came out, right? When they heard somebody donkey kicking your door and trying to get in, and a couple of neighbors came out and said, hey, what are you doing over there?
That sounds like a neighborhood I want to live in.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, and it comes down to, speaking of law enforcement, right, you're talking about somebody with whom you have no personal relationship, somebody who doesn't know you from any other, resident in the community, as compared to people with whom you have a personal relationship.
Yes.
Right? Who know you.
Yes, they're far more likely to come out and challenge that person.
Exactly. And to come to your aid when you need it.
Right.
And a bad guy that walks down your block, if more than one or two neighbors come out, I guarantee you they're probably leaving.
They're leaving.
Because they've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I knew that when we sat down to do this, we could run the risk of going very, very long in this conversation. So I want to begin to reel it in. And I'm going to throw the same question out to both of you. If you had one message to give to new or potential AmCon members about why preparedness matters and how AmCon supports that effort, what would that message be?
Boy, you're really putting it out there for us, aren't you? I mean...
Well, I said begin to reel it
Yeah.
in. You know,
That's...
lots of layers to this onion.
Yeah, there is.
What was the question again?
Yeah. One message to give to new or potential members about why preparedness matters.
I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's preparedness is more than just that word, preparedness. I think you said it, right? It's a lifestyle, and it's how we live. I mean, if you look at our categories, there's nothing in there that's kooky or crazy, or we eat every day, we drink
Right.
water, we do hygiene.
Right?
And when I do anything that's important to me, I do a little research on it, I understand things better, and then I move forward in it progressively until I become successful at it, right? And this is your life you're talking about here. This is your everyday existence. And on top of that, if not for yourself, for the people that you're surrounded by that look to you to be their leader, you should do it for them. And I'm not asking you to jump on the courses that we put up there or meet Michael B. and have him hook you up with a new community across the country. I'm asking you just to, just tip your toe in the water and see what's here, what's to offer, what we're providing for you. It's not scary. It's not crazy. You'll realize really quickly that this is everyday stuff, and I'm actually good at a few of these things.
The one that's furthest out on the fringe to me is homesteading.
Yeah.
And I can see a lot of people, given their living circumstances, thinking, that category, that just doesn't apply to me. I never want to go out and live off grid with the cows and the goats and all that. That's not all it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, I think one of the first lessons in the homesteading essentials course is about building a toolbox.
Yeah.
And just having tools to fix some of the common things that go on around your home, taking responsibility for maintaining your home. And you can do that whether you live off grid on 70 acres or if you live in an apartment downtown.
Absolutely. And if you think you got it,
Teach
take the
it.
course and understand it, and so you have material to then teach it to your kid.
Mm-hmm.
Or your wife or your family, because we forget things we take for granted.
Right.
And we can't redistribute it because we lose it in our memory.
I got a toolbox for all of my grandkids.
Excellent.
And it's got a little screwdriver, two little screwdrivers, a pair of pliers, tape measure, and a little hammer.
Yeah.
And for some of them, that might be the only toolbox they ever have in their life, right? But for others, it'll be a start. And so I bring that up because, we have segmented things into a lot of different categories, and people look at some of those categories and like, well, what's that about? But you're right. They're about everyday things.
Yeah.
Health and medical, food and water, right? It's just the stuff that we do. And so if you can just take those topics and those lessons and incorporate them into your life, just a little bit at a time.
Absolutely. Think about it. I'll sit there on the couch on a Sunday afternoon, and all of a sudden a cooking show will come on, and I'll learn a new recipe.
Yeah.
And I've been cooking my whole life.
Right.
Same thing.
We're not talking about anything more kooky or fringe than learning a new recipe on a cooking show. Well, that's pretty good.
And then I'll just finish off my statement, but with what we provide is, we only provide a place for you to be encouraged to give you, backing, give you a little push, fill the pool,
Yeah.
heat it, make it ready for you. You're the one that comes in and does the work for yourself, for what you need to move forward.
Yeah.
And that's us. That's American Contingency.
Yeah, for me, it's a very binary choice.
Okay.
If you choose to be, well, if you choose not to be prepared and not to be have personal accountability, then you've chosen to be a victim of circumstance, a victim of another person, a victim of whatever, right? Because you have not equipped yourself to be someone who can respond to what life may throw at you, right? Whether it's a circumstance or, like I say, natural, man-made, but and not to say that you'll always, avoid being affected, but for me, a victim is somebody who's willingly
At the mercy of someone else.
Yeah, right, exactly. And if you're prepared to do something to combat or to address or to respond to something that you're faced with in regard to a disaster or a threat, then you're not just kind of throwing up your hands and saying,
Right.
I'm helpless, right?
Right.
I'm in the face of this, and so thus I am a victim.
Right.
You're gonna try like hell to do all that you can do to better your own circumstance, and to be to produce as positive as an outcome in a bad situation as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think the other thing that I'll tack on there as we wrap up is there's no 100% solution,
No.
right? I mean, I said that and both of you started shaking your head. I mean, if you've been at this more than about 10 minutes, right, you quickly figure out that I can't do all this. And I say, no kidding.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot. And just like we talked about earlier today, you have to evaluate the risks that are most likely for you and then work to mitigate those risks, right? I can build a house that is in an impenetrable fortress, but I will live in a prison, right?
Yeah.
Or I can build a house that discourages and dissuades bad actors and gives me time to be able to respond. But I love your point of view, Michael, that you either choose to be prepared or you choose to be a victim.
Yep.
And where, victim is someone who is completely at the mercy of someone else because I have none of that capability myself.
Exactly.
Right? Even if all you know how to do is apply pressure, right? You're smarter and better prepared in the medical arena than you were yesterday, if that's all you learned today.
Right.
If all you learned today was, put 4-inch screws in the hinge side of the door, you're better prepared today than you were yesterday.
Absolutely.
It is a never-ending process.
And if you don't have your own best interest in mind, your own self-interest, then who?
Then who? Who's looking out for you?
Right, exactly. And then in speaking about community and talking about, self, family, neighborhood, right? There are people who rely upon you.
Uh-huh.
There are people who you love and care about deeply. And so, if you're not prepared yourself, then you can't possibly provide for them.
Listen, I say it like this. If you are under the sound of this podcast, you are a leader in your community, whether you want to be or not, because you are, just by virtue of listening to us chit-chat around the table, you have improved your preparedness posture. That increases your level of confidence. That confidence is a magnet to people who are scared.
Yeah.
People will come to you and ask you what to do. And it's like I said earlier today, if somebody called you when they heard about Charlie being shot, they were looking to you for direction. They might not have said it. They might not ever say it. But that's what they were doing. Oh, man, what should we do? How should I feel about this? Should I be mad? Should I cry? Should I laugh? Should I what? Right? They're looking to you. So the best thing you can do is be as best prepared as you can individually. Have your family as best prepared as they can be. And do your best to learn how to lead the community, because they're coming to your door.
Oh, yeah.
They are, I absolutely guarantee they are coming to your door, right? You can ignore it if you want to, right? That's like ignoring that big gash in your leg. You can ignore it if you want to, but pretty soon you're going to have to take care of that, right?
Right.
And so I would say, why is it important? One, so you don't become a victim, but two, focus on leadership, because leadership, I really struggle to say this. Leadership is very important. I want to say the most important, but it's very important, because if there's more than me involved, there's leadership involved.
Sure.
And I'm either leading or following, but there is leadership involved if there is more than one.
And even if it's just yourself, it takes you to become your own leader, just to get off the bench and
That's right.
get off your butt.
Well,
And
so-
if you're a parent, you're a leader in your family, whether
yes,
you like it or not.
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Your kids, your spouse, the other people in your family, they're like, oh, what do we do? I can't, I play that role in my family, and even in the extended family. And it's not one that I really relish. I don't like being the person who arbitrates disagreements. I don't like being the person who, hey, I've got a flat tire and, I'm an hour and a half away. Can you come help? My dad called one time. He was already sick, but it's obviously before he died. But he called one time and said, hey, what are you doing? I was like, I'm sitting here watching TV. What are you doing? I'm like, well, not much. You think you can come up to my house for a minute? I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's like 45 minutes away. Do you need something? Should I bring something? He's like, well, I'm just laying in the floor in the living room and can't get up. And well, maybe you could come help me. And I'm like,
Right.
I will, but I can get you help faster than that.
Yeah.
Right? And fortunately for me, one of our local AmCon members literally lived across the street from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going, hey, Michael, can you go over and help my dad? And he, yeah, sure. Right. And so so that brings us back to community. It brings us back to training. It
Right.
brings us back to leadership.
And leadership can be a very frightening word for some people.
Sure.
And leadership does not mean that you always have to be right or that you're responsible for the outcomes or other people's actions. Really, leadership to me is the main theme, the main responsibility of leadership is to be of service, right? To kind of be in front, to show a way, maybe not the way, and to serve others. And I think, kind of in tying it back to Charlie, right, from the beginning, is that I think that was one of the biggest and most important teachings of Christ beyond love for one another was to be of service.
Serve one another.
Yes.
Yep.
And delegate.
Yeah.
Be a good delegator as well.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up today. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate
Thank you.
y'all
This was
doing
fun.
this.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks.
This is your AmCon Daily Sit Rep for September the 14th, 2025. Up first today, a comprehensive poll reveals the widespread impact of stress, social media, and school-related anxiety among British teens aged 16 and 17. The poll shows a significant confidence crisis, especially among girls, with over 33% reporting anxiety and nearly 70% saying it has caused them to skip school. The main fears revolve around exams, finding jobs, and future financial security. The new Online Safety Act aims to mitigate these issues by restricting access to harmful online content for underage users. In other news, President Trump has signed an executive memorandum aimed at increasing transparency in pharmaceutical television drug advertisements. This directive tasks the Department of Health and Human Services with ensuring accurate information about drug risks and directs the FDA to enforce laws against misleading ads more rigorously. This move seeks to reverse a 1997 policy that allowed drug companies to use brief risk statements while directing viewers elsewhere for full details. Turning to preparedness, experts warn about the detrimental effects of hatred on an individual's readiness and decision-making during emergencies. Hatred, rooted in fear and vulnerability, can trigger fight or flight responses and impair clear thinking. Recommended actions include converting anger into positive efforts, practicing compassion, and addressing underlying personal issues to maintain mental clarity and resilience. Meanwhile, the U.S. electric grid is under increasing stress from the rapid growth of energy-demanding data centers. Texas has enacted laws allowing grid operators to cut power to these facilities during emergencies to prevent widespread blackouts. Other regions, including the Mid-Atlantic, are considering similar measures despite opposition from the tech industry. This strategy aims to balance the demand surge with the necessity of grid reliability. Finally, looking at weather, expect rounds of thunderstorms across the plains today and into tonight, with potential for severe storms and flash flooding. A coastal storm is developing near the Mid-Atlantic, bringing inclement weather to the Carolina shorelines. Meanwhile, a persistent mid-September heat wave continues across the Mississippi Valley, Midwest, and Northeast regions. Residents in affected areas should stay alert for storm updates and be prepared for possible severe weather conditions. Regarding upcoming events, the North Regional Campout, Training, and Adventure Challenge is ongoing in Central City, Iowa through today, September 14th. Later this month, the Black Hills Veterans March will take place on September 20th in Custer, South Dakota. In October, the Southeast Adventure Challenge is scheduled for October 3rd to 5th at Trace State Park in Tupelo, Mississippi. And in November, the South Region Adventure Challenge will be held from November 7th to 9th in Milburn, Oklahoma. Members are encouraged to participate in these preparedness and training events. Members can access the American Contingency Members-Only site to get the full report and more in-depth analysis of today's stories, along with practical preparedness tips, training opportunities, and resources to help you, your family, and your neighborhood stay crisis ready.
That conversation with Michael and Denny was a great reminder. Preparedness doesn't stop at our doorstep. It starts at home, but it's meant to ripple outward into the street, into the neighborhood, and into your community. A neighborhood where people watch patterns, notice changes, and communicate with each other is a neighborhood that weathers disruptions better. Hurricanes, wildfires, power outages, all of them are easier to handle when awareness has already spread. Awareness, look, it's stewardship. It's a responsibility, but it's also a gift. And like most gifts, it grows when you share it. Next week, we'll take awareness out of the community. From schools to the workplace to neighborhoods, we'll talk about how the shared awareness builds trust, resilience, and a stronger network of preparedness. Thanks for listening to the AmCon Daily Brief. If you're already a member, make sure to check out all of today's resources on the members-only platform or in your phone app. And if you're not a member yet, it's easy. Just head over to AmericanContingency.com to join the network and start building real resilience today. I'm Thom Rigsby. Stay alert, stay ready, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.